Yeah, g'day. Tonight I'm going to be talking about the modifications I've made to my Spyder MR1 paintball marker. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the model, this is a picture of an unmodified Spyder MR1. Before purchasing the MR1, I did a lot of research on the internet and took careful note of the common faults that people had experienced with it. The most commonly reported fault was that the plastic clamp between the feed neck and the hopper would frequently break, and there was a simple fix for that. So when I purchased mine, I made sure I got a Trinity feed neck, clamping feed neck, already installed. The big minus to the Trinity feed neck is that it brings the hopper very much closer in line with the bore of the gun, which makes sighting very, very difficult, or mounting a scope pretty much impossible. So in order to get around that, I had to mount an angle mounted scope mount on the side, and in order to do that and make it still fit with the cocking lever and the feed neck, I had to butcher that most seriously. Another very easily fixed problem is that the straight bar along the top of the stock makes it very difficult for you to get down to a sighting position, especially when wearing a full paintball mask. The simple solution, of course, is to cut the top of the stock off. But work with a hacksaw, then a file, and now you can get your head down low, even with a mask on, in sight. Another thing I did was to drill a small hole in the bottom of the stock and put a clip through it. That enables me to easily clip it onto a single point sling. My single point sling is just the strap from the laptop carry case that I use to carry my marker around in. One thing that I personally didn't like about the MR1 is the double length trigger. I'm used to holding a real rifle with my hands wrapped around the grip and one finger inside the trigger guard. So the modification I next made was to cut the trigger off short, so that now hand can fit inside there without being in the way of the trigger. The other modification I did was to put a trigger stop up inside the mechanism so that the trigger wouldn't go quite as far back. That required a little bit of minor smithing, quite simple. If you look inside the receiver, if that's the bottom of the receiver there, the trigger is a little L shape like that. When you pull on the trigger, the L goes down. And there's a little spring there so that as it angles down, it compresses the spring. It could travel quite a way back. So what I did was, inside the spring I put a short length of metal. I actually just cut down a nail, dropped it inside the spring so that when the trigger comes down it would hit the top of the nail and stop and limit its rearward travel. It took a bit of taking apart and putting back together again in between times, carefully filing down the length of that nail so that it would allow the trigger to go back just far enough to break, but not any further. It was well worth it, because now I've got a very crisp, responsive trigger. It goes back just far enough to fire, and then back ready to fire again. I found the stock barrel not quite to my liking, so I purchased a J&J ceramic 14-inch, which I find performs a lot better for my style of play. The last modification is rather an odd one and not to everybody's style of play. I found that the 200 round hopper was too big, so I moved down to a 50, and then one of my teammates at the Timberwolves Paintball Club in Hamilton came up with another little idea. It's just a length of curved plumbing stuff clamped in there, and about 5 balls will fit between about this point here and down to the detent that holds them in place. This tube holds about 10 balls, so what you do is you stick a ball with 10 paintballs in it, tube with 10 paintballs, rock it down, 5 roll down, and you fire, you run out of those 5, you rock it down, the next 5 go down, fire, that's 10 shots, take it off, and in your pouch you've got a number of these, which is just similar lengths of plumbing pipe wrapped in black tape with the little cap, end cap goes on it. These will fit in an MP5 magazine pouch. Tuck a couple of those things down your leg or in your pocket, and you've got a magazine feed and no bulky hopper. If you drop it, you don't lose 50 to 200 paintballs all over the ground. Not for everyone's style of play, mind you. Mechanical trigger, semi-automatic only, gravity feed only. I'm not a pray and spray kind of person. I don't need a large magazine capacity, so it's perfectly fine for me. Your mileage of course may vary. Have a good evening.